The Old West was a land of opportunities, but it is also a place where the strong preyed on the weak. One man built his empire with his own two hands, carving out a legend of hard work, honor, and justice. But when a ruthless land baron arrives looking to take everything from him, the frontier is set to explode. As corrupt officials and hired guns stack the deck, outlaws ride freely, the law is bought and paid for, and the people have nowhere to turn. But one thing about the West, it doesn't take kindly to bullies. Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors and let you know that there will be spoilers ahead. Today on Classic Movie Review, we are taking on the John Wayne Western, Chisum, 1970. My name is John. When I say it's classic John Wayne, it's similar to many of his other films. New York Times film critic Howard Thompson stated, quote, "Forget substance, settle for color and commotion and you won't feel cheated," unquote. This movie only boasts a 6.9 rating on IMDb.com. Still, it's a fan favorite with 83% on the tomato meter and 74% on the popcorn/audience score at RottenTomatoes.com. I have to agree that the supporting cast is great, the backstories are compelling, and the bad guys getting what's coming to them in the end is just good black and white justice. This movie generally covers the Lincoln County War and the rise of Billy the Kid, but with very little attention paid to historical accuracy. Actors. The villainous Sheriff Brady was played by John Wayne's old drinking buddy, Bruce Cabot. We talked about Cabot in King Kong 1933, where he played a leading role as the hero and love interest of Fay Wray. What can I say about the star of this movie that hasn't been said before? Marion Robert Morrison starred as John Chisum, but of course, you know the actor as John Wayne. John Wayne is arguably the most well-known of all American actors. For many, he embodied the quintessential American spirit. His bold swagger and take-charge attitude are values highly regarded by many Americans. These are also the same values that cause many non-Americans to have contempt and hatred for our country. John Wayne had 181 acting credits spanning 50 years from 1926 to 1975. In those early years of Wayne's career, he met a real Western lawman who had come to Hollywood to try and sell his story. The man from whom John Wayne learned to act like a cowboy was none other than Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp is such an icon of the Western movie genre that a review of IMDb.com shows no less than 56 movies portraying that character, spanning from the 1930s all the way through the aught-teens, including the masterful Tombstone that showed why Kurt Russell was cast in roles as diverse as The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes 1969, Used Cars 1980, Escape from New York 1981, The Best of Times 1986, Big Trouble in Little China 1986, Captain Ron 1992, Stargate 1994, and Miracle 2004. I hope to get to many of these movies later, but I digress. I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. To sum up, John Wayne could not pick a better cowboy to learn from. Wayne attended USC on a football scholarship and later began working in Hollywood. During the Big Trail 1930, a wagon train western, director Raoul Walsh met a handsome prop boy by the name of Marion Robert Morrison. Walsh renamed him John Wayne after Revolutionary War General Mad Anthony Wayne. The name came because Walsh was reading a book about Mad Anthony Wayne at the time. I guess we can all be glad that he wasn't reading about the swamp fox, Francis Marion. About 84 of Wayne's movies were westerns of some type. These films range from playing a singing cowboy in Riders of Destiny 1933 to his final film in which he portrayed an aging gunfighter with cancer in The Shootist 1976, and there's a link below. In between, he played every kind of cowboy, from The Driven in The Searchers 1956 to a madman in Red River 1948 and a comic in McClintock 1963. And there's links for all of those in the description. I believe it would be safe to say he made movies about being in every branch of the service, maybe not the Coast Guard. In movies, he flew planes of every size and description and drove every type of boat and ship. Wayne was a lifelong Republican and a war hawk, even supporting the Vietnam War. However, during World War II, he chose not to enter service as it might have negatively impacted his career. Wayne died in 1979 from cancer. That same year, a Congressional Gold Medal was struck in his honor. Wayne was a controversial figure in life, but a hell of an actor. Through his acting, he set the bar for manliness. Gregory Peck had an interesting idea about Wayne, quoting, "That's why these fellows were so magnificent playing the same part, because they played it 40 times. That was why John Wayne finally became a good actor in True Grit in 1969. He got 150 of them behind him. Now, he's developed a saltiness and an earthiness and a humor and a subtlety that comes from mining the same vein over and over again." Unquote. Lawrence Murphy's character was played by Forrest Tucker. Tucker is a well-known actor with almost 150 acting credits, the majority of which were television roles. He is perhaps best known for his role on the television show F Troop from 1965 to 1967. However, I'm more impressed with his role in Anti-Mame 1958, and there's a link below, where he was cast as Beauregard Jackson Pickett Burnside, the owner of Peckerwood Plantation, which is located just outside of Savannah. Christopher George played Dan Nodine, a snarling hired gun working for the Murphy side. I would not normally mention him except for two things. The first was a line he delivered in this flick. When asked where he was going, he replied he was leaving because there weren't enough paydays in this outfit. In other words, money ain't worth getting killed for. Secondly, when working with the beautiful starlet Linda Day on this film, they fell in love and were later married. After that, she was known as Linda Day George. Linda Day played Susan McSween, who was married to an honest storekeeper who was caught in the middle of the feud. Day has 80 acting credits and was a successful television actress. British actor Patrick Knowles was cast as the English cattleman Henry Tunstall. For some reason, the producers cast a much older actor in this part. In reality, Tunstall was 25 when he was murdered. Knowles had 127 credits from 1932 to 1973. Knowles was cast as Frank Andrews in The Wolfman 1941, and there's a link in the description, who helped track and kill the Wolfman. Knowles played the role of Will Scarlet in The Adventures of Robin Hood 1938, and there's a link for that below, and The Unrequited Love in Anti-Mame 1958, and there's a link for both below. Ben Johnson played the role of Chisum, John Wayne's sidekick. He peppers this movie with authentic frontier gibberish and is continually mumbling to himself. Johnson really stole the spotlight from Wayne in this movie. Johnson had 104 acting credits. He consistently played the role of the wise cowpoke. One of his most noted roles is in The Wild Bunch 1969. However, I like him as the insurgent supporting grandpa in Red Dawn 1984, and there's a link below for that. Jeffrey Dooley played Billy, the kid, Bonney in this movie. Dooley was born in Lockport, New York in 1943. He attended high school in Penfield, New York, before attending Ithaca College and Syracuse University. He eventually followed his older brother Peter's footsteps and went to Hollywood. Dooley began appearing on television in 1966, and his first and best-known film is Chisum 1970. He spent 6 years in the Army and was active in education. The last of his 39 television and movie credits was in 2001. At the time this was originally written, he was currently living in Florida with his wife and dog. Glenn Colbert played the role of Pat Garrett. Colbert played one of the outlaws who kidnapped John Wayne's grandson in Big Jake 1971. And there's a link for that below. He was also in Midway 1976, along with everyone else who could walk. I don't know if you remember that movie Midway, but it was the second movie to have Sensurround. It is described as, quote, special low-frequency bass speakers set up consisting of 4 huge speakers loaned out by distributors to select theaters showing the film. The system was only employed during specific sequences of the film. It was so powerful that it actually cracked plaster at some movie theaters, unquote. I saw this movie in 1976, and I still think I have hearing impairment. Pedro Gonzalez played a Mexican rancher in Chisum 1970, but he can be seen in 85 movies playing bit parts. A few notable John Wayne films in which he was present include The High and the Mighty 1954, Rio Bravo 1959, and Hellfighters 1968, their links below. Of course, we would not want to forget he was also in the comedy The Love Bug 1968. Background. Chisum 1970 is set during the Lincoln County War. I mean the one in the New Mexico Territory in 1878, and not anything that happened in Nebraska. In a nutshell, Lawrence Murphy owned a store and some other stuff, and he was pretty happy setting the prices due to lack of competition. Englishman John Tunstall arrived on the scene and with backing from a powerful rancher, John Chisum, tried to break the monopoly by opening a competing store. Each side starts gathering gunfighters, ranch hands, and lawmen for the coming fight. The Murphy side was supported by the Jesse Evans gang and the local sheriff named Brady. On the Tunstall side were a group of armed men that were later known as the Regulators. Among the groups was the town constable, Richard Brewer, and a skinny kid who went by the name of William Bonney. No doubt you know him as Billy the Kid. Somewhere in the middle of these two groups was Pat Garrett. Well, like any good Western, the two sides start knocking each other off. But wait a minute, I'm still talking about the real story. I haven't gotten to the movie yet. First, Murphy's people killed the Englishman Tunstall. Then the Regulators murdered Sheriff Brady. The killing continued for a few months with names such as the Blackwater Massacre, where only 3 people were killed, and the Battle of Blazer's Mill. These nicely named murders finally resulted in the Battle of Lincoln. The two sides took up positions around town and started shooting and hollering at each other. A couple of folks got killed, but it was basically a standoff. On the 4th day, the army arrived. They pointed their cannons at the Regulators, and some of them fled. Later that day, they set the house on fire, driving the remaining Regulators from the house. A few more were killed in the fight, but the kid and some others got away. Things settled down after the fight. 2 years later, Pat Garrett became the county sheriff. Garrett and Billy the Kid were good friends. They had often been seen gambling together in the local saloon, earning the nicknames Big Casino and Little Casino. This did not stop Garrett from killing Bonney in the night under questionable circumstances. The story has been retold by Hollywood many times. Notables include The Left-Handed Gun, 1958, Young Guns, 1998, and today's subject, Chisum, 1970. I just wanted to take a second to talk about Paul Newman and The Left-Handed Gun, 1958. Newman did a great job in that movie, and I hope to return to him for Cool Hand Luke, 1967, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. The Sting 1973 review is now live, and a link is included in the description. But what I wanted to talk about is the left hand. It was basically believed that Billy the Kid was left-handed. The only proven photograph of him shows his holster on the left side. When the rifle he was holding in the other hand was examined in the late 1950s, it was found that the breech opening was facing the wrong direction. This was confirmed in 2001 when the buckling buttons in the picture were studied. It seems that the photographer simply flipped the negative before the image was printed. Story. This movie begins with a rousing theme song that explains how hard Chisum worked to drive his cattle beyond the Red River and drive those Indians from the land. This could almost be viewed as a continuation of Red River 1948, showing the elder years. Since Chisum, John Wayne, got there first, of the Anglos anyway, he took the best piece of land. He is shown sitting on his horse, watching over what is now his. Chisum's top hand, James Pepper, Ben Johnson, collects him from the hill so they can meet the stage. Sheriff Brady, Bruce Cabot, is out meeting with Mexican bandits so he can pay them to cause trouble for Chisum.
Nemo, here's your pay. And now I collect a bonus.
Some of Chisum's men are herding a string of ponies when the Mexican bandits attack. They kill a lot of men and they steal the horses. In town, Chisum finds that the general store owner is pulling out. He has been bought out by L.G. Murphy, Forrest Tucker. Chisum is told about the attack and heads towards the Tunstall Ranch to head them off. On the Tunstall Ranch, Englishman Henry Tunstall, Patrick Knowles, and his assistant, William Bonney, aka Billy the Kid, Jeffrey Dooley, are sorting cows as to their ownership. Tunstall mentors Bonney on fair dealings. Chisum and his men ride up, and the Tunstall group rides after them. The bandits are a short distance away, watering their horses in the stream. Chisum and Pepper ride down to confront the bandits.
I said I heard you, Mr. Chisum, but I ain't the rest of it.
Bonnie rides ahead because he is the best with a gun and doesn't mind killing.
I know you don't believe in guns, but I got a feeling Mr. Chisum's gonna have need of his. Well,
what?
Well, he didn't say no.
Pepper finds the money that the sheriff paid the bandits.
Did you bring some gold with you?
No,
Silver?
just lead.
Chisum invites Bonney to his niece's reception, but when he finds out he is Billy the Kid, they have an awkward moment. Chisum goes back into town to meet his niece when she arrives on the stage. Chisum goes into the bar and finds out that L.G. Murphy and his flunky, James Shea Dolan, Edward Faulkner, are cutting off the water from the other ranchers. Chisum allows the other ranchers to take his water.
Juan,
Si, Senor Chisum.
you and your compadres can water your herds along the Jicarilla. It's not much farther and it's a whole lot cleaner.
At this stage, he meets the new store manager, Alex McSween, Andrew Prine, and his wife, Sue McSween, Linda Day George. His niece, Sally Chisum, Pamela McMyler, is at the stable buying a horse. Chisum and Sally head back to the ranch. Tunstall is acting as a father figure to Bonney. When they come out of the store, Bonnie's old riding gang comes up, led by Jess Evans, Richard Jekyll. Tunstall is a little shocked that Bonney used to ride with a crowd like that. Evans goes to work with Murphy. Former buffalo hunter Pat Garrett, Lynn Corbett, comes into camp where men are watching Chisum's cattle. He lets them know that riders led by Evans are approaching the herd. Garrett helps the cattlemen fight the rustlers. They capture one of the rustlers named Riker, Greg Palmer, and take him back to the house. It is the night of the party, and Garrett sees Sally dancing with Bonney. When they are introduced, Garrett gets a little snide with Bonney. The next day, they drop Riker off at the jail with Sheriff Brady. Murphy explains to Alex his plans to get the water rights from Chisum. Sheriff Brady and Evans come to talk about Riker, but they won't talk about it in front of Alex. The three men plan to let the prisoner escape and hide in the line camp. They plan to put out a reward poster for the escaped rustler. James J. Doolin is roughly throwing an old Hispanic man named Juan out of the Murphy store. Bonney fires a shot through the window to stop the fight, but Tunstall has him put his gun away. Chisum shows up and they talk to Murphy about his prices. Tunstall and Chisum decide to open a store and a bank to compete with Murphy. The herd that was scattered by the rustlers was supposed to be delivered to the army. At the fort, the commander says he has already ordered a herd from someone else. An Indian chief, White Buffalo, Abram Sofair, knows Chisum from the old days. When he tries to talk to Chisum, an Army First Sergeant, John Picard, grabs the chief. Chisum grabs the sergeant and gives him a cigar, and calmly explains that if he touches White Buffalo again, he will kill him.
One other thing you ought to know, Sergeant. You touch White Buffalo again and I'll kill you.
After Chisum rides out, the commander meets with L.G. Murphy. They have been making shady deals. Alex, the storekeeper, has found out what a rat Murphy is, and he is going to see Chisum and Tunstall. They propose that he run their store and bank as a partner. Bonney is leading the wagon train to get supplies for the new store. Garrett loses all his money gambling and decides to join Bonney. Before Billy leaves, he gives a wooden cross to Sally because he thinks she's purty. Scarface bounty hunter Dan Nodine, Christopher George, comes in with Riker's body to collect the bounty. Murphy's plan has gone off the rails a bit. Sheriff Brady mentions that Nodine limps because Bonney shot him a few years back. Murphy offers Nodine a job, but he refuses. During the trip to Santa Fe, Bonney and Garrett became good friends. Bonney wants to know if he can change and get married. Garrett says that it takes time to get over your past.
You ever think on getting married?
I've been 3 years a buffalo hunter.
What's that got to do with getting married?
The smell?
What smell?
Death.
Later, when the wagon train is crossing a river, Evans and his gang of riders attack. The wagon train is prepared, and the raiders take a pretty bad beating. The wagon train loses some men as well. Evans shoots Bonney as he's driving one of the wagons across the river, but he survives so Sally can take care of him. Chisum wants to kill Murphy, but Tunstall and Alex stop him. Tunstall plans to go to Santa Fe to talk to the territorial governor. Chisum has to throw in his contempt for the government, which is higher than the gun. The store and the bank hurt Murphy's business as soon as they open. While Bonney is healing, Tunstall leaves for Santa Fe, but first he makes Bonney promise not to use the gun. Evans brands some of Murphy's cattle with the Tunstall brand. The sheriff then sends out men to arrest Tunstall. Tunstall starts arguing and reaches for his watch. One of the deputies, Bradley, Robert Donner, overreacts and shoots him. He then places a drop gun on the unarmed man. They have the funeral for Tunstall, just as Justice J.B. Wilson, Ray Till, shows up. Bonney is the last to leave the graveside. He vows revenge. Chisum gets deputized to track down the killers. Murphy and Evans give their version of the story to the territorial governor. Chisum and his men catch the killers in a little cantina. They beat the men and then take them into custody. Garrett and the men are taking the prisoners to town when Bonney rides up. Cool as a cucumber, he shoots the two men down and flees. Bonney charges into town and guns Sheriff Brady down in the middle of the main street. Murphy gets the governor to revoke JB's power. The governor appoints Nodine as the new sheriff. Chisum says he will handle Murphy if there's any more trouble.
If one of your men cross my land or even touch one of my cows or do anything to that store, I'm not going to the sheriff, the governor, or the president of the United States. I'm coming to see you.
Mr. Chisum, that sounds like a threat.
Wrong word.
Bonney comes to see Sally, and Garrett catches him.
Oh, they'll kill you.
They'll try.
Pat, what are you doing?
Maybe he wants the reward.
You know Pat Garrett better than that.
Chisum takes Bonney in and tries to explain things to him. Chisum talks about a girl he walked away from in Texas. Is this Red River 1948 again? Nodine goes on a terror spree looking for Bonney. Bonney gets a gang together and plans on robbing the bank and killing Murphy. Back at the ranch, Garrett is macking on Sally. Garrett gives Chisum the Great White Father speech. Bonney and his gang ride into town that night. They break into Chisum's store to steal dynamite. Alex catches them and he tries to convince Bonney not to go forward. Nodine sees Bonney from across the street and gathers his group. Nodine and his men start firing indiscriminately into the store. The rest of the Bonney gang make it into the store. Nodine won't let Alex and Sue leave even though they are innocent bystanders. At sunup, Nodine calls Bonney to come out. They start firing again. Alex asks Murphy if Sue can come out. They let her outside and she crosses the street. Hey, but they're shooting that way too. Alex decides he wants to come out. Nodine refuses to let him out. Bonney starts picking the other side off and whittling them down pretty well. Sue rides out to get Chisum. Murphy guards both ends of town and puts barricades up. Chisum gets all the men he can and heads into town. Alex asks for a ceasefire and comes out alone. When he does, Nodine guns him down in the street. Nodine calls for torches. Chisum and the other locals meet by the cattle corral in town. By this time, Nodine's men have set the store on fire. Chisum and his men send the herd of cows, not dairy cows, but real Texas Longhorns, streaming down the main street of the town and over the barricade. Chisum rides his horse through a window to get at Murphy. Bonney and his remaining guys break out and continue the fight. Murphy and Chisum fight in every room and break all the furniture and windows. Bonney tracks down Evans and kills him in a fair fight.
Really?
Murphy and Chisum fight upstairs and fall out the top window. Murphy is impaled on a set of Longhorns.
Can you make it? What? Where's...
I guess they came off the wall. I don't think one of the cows lost them. Nodine leaves town saying it ain't worth it. Garrett becomes a sheriff. General Lew Wallace takes over as territorial governor and gives a general amnesty. Garrett and Sally are a thing now. So, Garrett becomes the sheriff, gets the girl, and rich guy Chisum goes back to lording over his valley. Billy the Kid becomes an outlaw. The end. Conclusion. I spent years working at Shiloh National Military Park in Tennessee as an archaeologist. Many days on the way to excavate at the mounds, I would pass a giant stack of black painted cannonballs. They bore the words W.H.L. Wallace's headquarters. One day it dawned on me that this was the headquarters of Lew Wallace, the author. I never really followed up on this, just assuming he wrote the book sometime before the Civil War. I was, in fact, very wrong. Many years after the war, Wallace was appointed governor of New Mexico Territory by President Rutherford B. Hayes. The story came together for me as I was listening to the excellent podcast Infamous America by Chris Wimmer when I learned the final part of the story. Governor Wallace secretly met with William H. Bonney, aka Billy the Kid. Wallace promised a full pardon in exchange for testimony in an upcoming trial. Jess Evans, played by Richard Jekyll in this movie, led a gang in opposition to Bonney's. Unlike the depiction here, Bonney didn't kill Evans, who simply disappeared after his release from prison around 1882. Bonney provided the grand jury testimony as promised, but a local district attorney revoked the parole. After several weeks in jail, Bonney escaped and returned to a life fighting members of the opposing side of the Lincoln County War. Bonney attempted to have the governor reinstate his parole, but the governor was busy with other matters. These matters turned out to be the completion of Wallace's book, Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, 1880. Of course, this book has been adapted into 3 movies. They are Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, 1925, and it's a pretty good watch for a silent film. Ben-Hur, 1959, an amazing movie with a big secret, and Ben-Hur, 2016. I haven't seen this last one, but I understand it should be avoided at all costs. In real life, Chisum kind of faded away from the troubles and later declined to aid his former co-conspirators. In the movie, the ages were all whacked up. Jeffrey Dooley, who played William Bonney, was 27 in the film, while the real Billy the Kid was killed at the age of 21. Patrick Knowles, who played Henry Tunstall, was supposed to be older than Chisum and was actually 58, this making him 4 years younger than John Wayne, who was playing Chisum. At the time of his murder, Tunstall was 25. Richard Jekyll, who played Jess Evans, was 43 when he portrayed the character, who would have been 24 at the time of the events depicted in the film. This film was made by John Wayne's Bat Jack Production Company. John Wayne's son Michael served as the executive producer. Michael said he thought the film represented his father's political views. Is it that you can kill when you want, regardless of the law, and let the hired helpers fend for themselves? Like many John Wayne films, it was a reunion of sorts. Today's film was one of 5 films starring John Wayne and directed by Andrew V. McLaglen. The other 4 films were McClintock 1963, Hellfighters 1968, The Undefeated 1969. There are links for those in the description. And Cahill U.S. Marshal 1973. A lot of director John Ford's or John Wayne's stock crew appeared in this film. This is one of 8 John Wayne films that co-starred Ben Johnson. Have no doubt, Ben Johnson as Pepper is the highlight of this movie. Of course, I have talked before about Bruce Cabot appearing in 11 of John Wayne's films as the pair were off-screen drinking buddies. John Agar was in 6 films with Wayne. Wayne's other son, Patrick, was in the film and also played Pat Garrett in Young Guns 1998, an age-appropriate movie about the Lincoln County War. The aforementioned Richard Jekyll also appeared in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid 1973, another film about the infamous outlaw. The film featured singer-slash-actors Chris Christopherson, Bob Dylan, and Rita Coolidge. For you film noir fans, Elisha Cook Jr. was also in the 1973 film. Great film noir actor Robert Mitchum's sons, Christopher and John, had small roles in Chisum 1970. This was Ray Teal's last film, having appeared with Wayne in Back to Bataan 1945. When Chisum opens his pocket watch for Sally, the picture of her mother is actress Lee Merriweather, who appeared with Wayne in the earlier film, The Undefeated 1969. And there's a link below in the description. The Undefeated 1969 was also directed by McLaglen and filmed in Durango, Mexico. Other members of the stock group include Hank Warden, Chuck Hayward, and Chuck Robertson. Another great film noir actor and voice talent, William Conrad, did the film's narration. The ranch used for this film was recycled for the much better John Wayne film, Big Jake 1971, and there's a link in the description. Is the movie ending of Chisum 1970 better than the real ending? I'm not sure how I feel. In the film, when Billy the Kid breaks into McSween's store, McSween comes down the stairs in the dark asking, "Who's there? Who's there?" This is a nod to Billy's last words as he was shot in a dark room by his friend Pat Garrett. Billy called out in Spanish, "Quién es? Who is it? Who is it?" In real life, Pat Garrett killed his friend Billy Bonney on July 14, 1881. World famous short summary. English boy goes to the Wild West and hangs out with Billy the Kid. Things end badly for the English boy. Oh, and for Billy the Kid too. Beware the Moors. All right, I want to thank you for watching. If you like what you saw and want more of it, leave me a comment, send me an email, give me a like, subscribe, you know all the stuff. It's greatly appreciated. As a technical note, references and citation are listed on the site classicmovierev.com, and there's a lot of film noir information over there. In just a second, a couple of boxes are going to pop up. One is another movie review I recommend for you to watch, and the other one is a playlist of westerns like today's film.